Let's now speak to Sam Greene, Professor of Russian Politics and Director of the Democratic Resilience Programme at the Centre for European Policy Analysis. He joins us now from Farnham, here in the UK. What do you make of these remarks tonight from Yevgeny Prigozhin? He is claiming that Ukraine's counteroffensive is beating back Russia's armed forces, but he's also claiming that the Russian army is killing his soldiers. How damaging is this for the Kremlin?
Well, it's really quite extraordinary. Prigozhin has been critical of the way in which the Ministry of Defense and the official Russian military have been prosecuting this war from the very beginning, calling them unprofessional, accusing them of leading to the unnecessary deaths of Russian soldiers. But he has certainly taken that quite a few steps further. First, as your reports mentioned, accusing them of attacking Wagner, his private military company, mercenary corps, but also, essentially undermining the entire story that Putin has sold the Russian public about this war from, in fact, before it began, the idea that Ukraine and NATO were preparing some sort of an attack and an escalation and a provocation against Russia. Of course, Prigozhin has said that this is not Putin's fault, that he was simply lied to by the military officials, really beginning with the Minister of Defense, Sergei Shoigu. But the reality is it's hard to see how you can listen to that story and not see Putin as something of a fool.
What is he trying to achieve by making these remarks? He's obviously, in the way he expresses himself, he's very frustrated, he's very angry, but he's also very powerful and important in terms of Russia's war. He controls many thousands of troops. This is a very effective fighting force. Is he trying to drive some sort of wedge between the Ministry of Defense and the Kremlin? I know you've commented on that, but why the particular focus on Sergei Shoigu in these remarks?
Well, I think that, the war is, among other things, frankly, it's a money-making endeavor, right? There are tremendous amounts of resources being funneled through the Ministry of Defense and other parts of the Russian state to procure arms and to pay soldiers. I think that, part of this, frankly, is that Shoigu has been trying to push Wagner and Prigozhin out of the procurement chain to a large extent, or to bring them under the direct command and control of the Ministry of Defense. That's something that Prigozhin has resisted and has tried to push back, and I think capture more of those resources for himself. But again, I think what we've seen in the last several hours takes it a step farther than that. I realize that Prigozhin himself has said that what he's proposing is not a military coup. He will leave the rest of the state intact. But it's really hard to see how you can essentially decapitate the military hierarchy, which is what he's proposing to do, without taking on the rest of the state. To present that idea to Putin as something of a fait accompli, right? That Prigozhin himself would simply take the Ministry of Defense out of commission and change the structure of the military. That's really quite an extraordinary proposition.
So is this an attempt by Prigozhin to try and gain more from the Russian state, whether it be through arms or money to maintain their independence, not be integrated in any way in the Ministry of Defense? Or is this really a threat to completely separate from the Russians and perhaps even turn against them on the battlefield?
Look, I will be, honest. It's very difficult for me to understand the calculation that Prigozhin is making here. This does not seem to me like a bargaining opportunity or an attempt to simply, alter the terms of trade with the Ministry of Defense or with the Kremlin more broadly. This really is such a significant challenge that he either has to win it outright or it's hard to see how he's going to survive in this system, or in fact to survive at all, right? The FSB, the security service, has launched a case against him for a mutiny and armed insurrection. That's quite a heavy charge. There are reports of paramilitaries around his headquarters in St. Petersburg. I don't know where he is himself personally at the moment, but he clearly is facing some threat. the reality is this is a very opaque system, right? Me as an analyst or you as a journalist, we don't really have the opportunity to call up people who are well connected within the Russian security state and to find out what's going on. We don't have sources who are going to tell us those things with any kind of reliability. And so I think we need to be very circumspect about our ability to really understand and predict what's going to happen next.
No, I do agree with you on that. We've had some very strong statements tonight, but I think opaque is definitely the best way to describe this. We have to be careful about drawing conclusions from this. But I do appreciate you giving us some insight into this nonetheless. Professor Sam Greene joining us there. Thank you.
Thank you.